I don't like when they hold on to it and then they don't run both events, and then that impacts someone's Olympic dream. But I don't think that he would do. He's either going to do the 5 and the 10 or the 10 and the marathon.
Yeah,
from what I've heard.
I know. I mean, and that's what I was gonna get into. It's like why do all three, or why qualify for all three if you don't have any intentions of doing it? And they'll bring a alternate then if he doesn't run like the 5, say, or the marathon? Will they bring an alternate, or how does that work?
I think you have to declare by a certain date, so that they can make the adjustments and notify whoever either the 4th place person was or whoever the first person down the list that has the Olympic A standard, so they can make arrangements and get them all squared away. Yeah,
I feel like if he runs the all three, there's two guys that have done it before, two other runners that have run all three.
Yeah, and I think you'd have to go back, a few decades to find.
Yeah, I think it's like I don't know if I can say this guy's name right. Emil Zatopek, and then Lars Viren.
Yeah, Zatopek I think won. I want to say he won all three, whereas I think Viren was 4th or 5th in the marathon, and then went on to win the 5 and the 10.
Yeah, that's insane.
I just don't think now in today's day and age that doubling and tripling and winning like that is possible, in some of those longer distance events, because they're just so deep and there's so many guys from all over, and there's always like some random guy that comes out of like Tanzania or Uganda,
yeah.
And it's like, and then with some of the shorter distances, it's if it goes out and it's a really slow pace, and then someone, cranks a 51 or a 50, last lap out of nowhere and surprises everyone. It's just too many people out there nowadays. Yeah,
it's exciting though. The guy he's run the marathon distance one time. He's probably the U.S.'s best shot for medaling in a marathon. It's in a while, because that year that Meb medaled, that was kind of almost like a fluky type of thing. That not that he medaled, but like no one was expecting Meb to medal. I think at the Olympics that year. That was Rome, right? That was when he ran. That was out in not Rome. What's it called? Was it Greece or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the actual, like Athens. It was Athens. Yeah, couldn't think of it. It was kind of like, not out of nowhere, but you know what I mean. It was a surprise. And then there was that thing that happened in the race when that guy came out there and like tackled the second place guy. You remember that?
Yep.
I feel like I remember watching this happen like it was yesterday. It was so weird. And but I mean, the conditions were super extreme, and Meb can run well in the heat. And and Meb is just an ageless wonder. That guy is insane. But I mean, it'd be cool to see Galen run the marathon against some of those world class, marathoners from the East African countries, and from the other countries in the world, just to see how he stacks up, because he's eventually going to probably make the leap. He can't run 5, 10K forever, or maybe he can if he's on the good stuff, But who knows? But it'd just be interesting to see him out there. I'd like to see him run the marathon personally, but whatever he chooses is his, prerogative, and that's cool with me. I think, he's always got to take into consideration, like Mo Farah is like, one of his training partners is, one of the top guys in the world too. And it's like, there's, when you get to that level, it's just like splitting hairs there. And I think with the marathon, there's so many things that can go wrong and go, and swing your way. I mean, I've been hearing things like, I know he did this for the Olympic trials. Brad Hudson I met him at the Olympic trials. He's one of John's good buddies, John Clements, and so he was telling us that Galen had been running like in like heated rooms basically for the 2 weeks leading up to, he heard about, so he was doing heat training. And then I also heard again, I think that they said it on the broadcast that he'd been cranking the heat up to like 80 in his house in Oregon and running on the treadmill. And I'm like, I'm sure his wife was probably like, Jesus, Galen, like turn the heat off, like it's summertime, So I guess so he'd been training for that. So, I mean, he's proven to be a good like long distance runner in the heat, and that's not an easy thing to do. Everybody knows that. Like all you people listening out there, I mean, some people are really good heat runners, I don't know if I think I'm just kind of like in the mix of people that just, when it's hot and humid out, it sucks, and you just kind of have to adjust pace. You got to adjust your race plan. Some people thrive off the heat, but physiologically, it's gonna get you one way or another, depending on how long the race is. But so I don't know what Rio's gonna be like. I mean, I'm sure it's gonna be humid. I'm sure it's gonna be relatively hot, but I'm pretty sure it's really humid down there as far as like tropical weather. I mean, they got a bunch of mosquitoes, so it's got to be humidity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It'll be fun to see. Like, I think we got, we're putting a good team out there for the marathon. I don't know anything about the third guy that made it, but from what I hear, he's pretty legit. So
that was another interesting. I read an interview with Salazar, or maybe it was on Let's Run, a video interview, but he had talked about his, that they're not worried about running in the heat, and that he's well trained in the heat and he does well in the heat. So that wasn't really an issue for him. I would like to see him personally. I would like to see him run the marathon too. I have a feeling he's going to focus on the 10K though.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's a beast at that event, the 10K. I mean, I think it'd be really cool if he ran the marathon and the 10K, because I think there's enough of a gap for where he can rest up, and except I'm pretty sure that one's at the beginning, one's at the end. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
The marathon's always at the end.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could pull up results, like the schedule. I mean, of events. Probably should have thought about that before we started, but whatever.
I'm pretty sure
we're learning here, people.
The marathon is typically one of the later events.
Yeah.
But another interesting thing I was looking at, I wanted to get your thoughts on, was the fact that second and third place were both Kenyan-born Americans.
Dude, I said that to Claire. I think it's interesting, and I think, if they're American citizens, that's awesome. Like, I think whoever earns it gets it. But it was like, it's one of those things where I'm like, it's kind of crazy to think, like, we are literally going to the Olympics with basically two Kenyans to race, like, the 10K. I just thought it was interesting. I don't have a problem with it. I think they're great runners, and I don't discount their efforts at all, but I just thought it was interesting. I said to Claire, I was just like, do you think it's funny? Like, Galen Rupp is like just a freak, I guess, because he's beating all these Kenyans. He's like the only white person to do it in like years, and it's like, it's just different. It's a different look. I think it's probably the new norm though, because there's a lot of people coming over here and becoming American citizens, like, and that are great runners, and that's fine. Like, I think it's great. Sammy Chilenga is one of them. Pretty competitive. I'm pretty sure I think he got his American citizenship like last year or something like that. And they're coming. I mean, that's what the great thing is about America. We got a lot of freedoms here, and it's really cool. But it's one of those things where you can't like separate it. There's nothing to separate there. If you're American, you're American. That kind of got us down the path of like, what's going to happen with, we don't have to talk about this, but it's just something to think about. What's going to happen with someday when some kind of like, there's going to be some kind of transgender thing going where, like, how do they segregate the, where they race, and it's like, I just was like, that's just mind blowing, because that's kind kind of been at the forefront of, reality in the future, or in the past. I mean, in the near past, where Caitlyn Jenner was an Olympian, an amazing Olympian, and what if there is someone that's transgender that wants to compete? And I think it's right now it's at the high school level. I think that's happening, but who knows, man? It just blows my mind, like all those things, like what could happen, how they're going to deal with it. Like we had an incident like a few years back with Caster Semenya, right, from South Africa.
I think that's still an issue too.
Yeah. So it's all kind of interesting. All these little stories are very interesting to me. Like, and I don't try to like take a full on position, because I'd like to stay really open minded about it all. But I don't know. What do you think about the two Kenyan-born like second and third place athletes at the trials? I mean, it's what do you think?
I mean, that's what America's founded on. You know what I mean? Like we're all, for the most part, unless you're, and I don't want to say Native American, they call it indigenous people. Unless you're of that ilk, you're born from some sort of immigrant that came here to start a new life for a better life, and everyone wants to live the American dream.
Heck yeah.
And then the other thing is like they're both in the U.S. Army. You know what I mean? So it's like how the old school people, the people that will complain about it. It's like you're being, I don't want to call them ignorant, but it's like we're all descendants of immigrants. You know what I mean? And whether you come from Kenya, or you come from Europe, or you come from Asia, or whatever, like that's kind of what America is. It's a melting pot. And now you're starting to even see it, on the other side of that, where you have American-born people that are born of parents from other countries, or dual citizenship, that are going to compete for other countries. I think the biggest one now in the headlines is David Torrance, who's lived in California his entire life, is now going to run for Peru in the Olympics.
Oh yeah, interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, I think ignorant is a good word. These guys are both in the Army. They both volunteered their service to be in the armed forces. Yeah, they're in a special program right now running, but they have a commitment after that, and you got to respect. You got to give them as much respect as you would with any other veteran. So it's like, they've volunteered their life, to this country, and you can't question someone's patriotism either. We just had one of the biggest holidays of the year yesterday, and built off of those, like what you said, foundation. So it's kind of what makes our country so great. We do have like this melting pot, and some of the greatest people I ever met was actually in the Army, which is the most diverse, like, kind of community you can be in. You think about it, like, me coming from my background, I meet some guy, some 18-year-old from Alabama, and there's some 30-year-old dude from Louisiana, and then someone from California, from like Walnut Creek, and like, it's like all these people have to learn how to get together and work together as a team, and it's such a great and like when I remember thinking, like, when I was in boot camp about that, and I was like, this is so cool, like, you got to make this work. And so it's just one of those things, like, you got to respect their choice to come to this country, or they're American-born Kenyans, so they're born in this country, but like they've put their like, in a way, they've volunteered their service to our military. So it's very great. It's a great thing to kind of see, and good for both of them for making it to the Olympics. They got dreams too.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny, I know for me, if you were to tell me that there was two Kenyan-born Americans that had made the team, my guesses would have been Bernard Lagat and Sammy Chalanga, and it was neither one of those. Lagat